right, today I'm fucking real. We've got the Watkins boys, Stuart and Cam. So welcome aboard, boys. And
thank you, brother.
Good to be here, bro. Good to be back.
Yeah. Thanks for coming back, bro.
No, man.
Yeah, we always knew we were going to have Stu coming along at some stage, man. So the day's finally arrived.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
So I'm going to get straight into this, right? So, Stu, particularly, I mean, we know a little bit about you, Cam, and now it's cool to have the brothers here and, talk about that as well. But also we want to, before we dive in with you, Stu, and what you do, what work you do, and also how you got to this place or where you are, it's all really interesting, and I want to dive deep into that. But for those who are listening at home, man, I just sort of want to touch base, because I reached out to Cam this morning. I'd lost my grandfather on Friday, who was my best mate. He was my grandfather. He was my father figure. And I lost him suddenly on Friday, man, and it's been a bit of a battle mentally. And that's where I reached out to you this morning, Cam, just saying, look, this is where I'm at. And I had the thoughts of, like, do I cancel this podcast this afternoon or not? And, you mentioned that you guys have also lost your father recently as well. I don't know, man. I just thought, well, fuck it, man. It's real. It's mental health. Let's just start there.
Yeah, good on you, man.
That sounds good. While it's raw.
Yeah.
How are you feeling like you're going, bro?
Oh man, depends at what stage you get me. I actually today has been a little bit rough. Initially, I was grieving. I was crying a lot with the loss of it. And then because I had all my family and friends and all that around me, and I was pretty distracted over the weekend, I was quite numb, yeah. And then, but today's been really fucking hard, man. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like it's hit me. It's like a second wave has come in, and I've, there's been a couple of times where I've automatically wanted to reach out to him and then realising, fuck, he's not here. Because he was a sort of, there wasn't a day that went by, mate, where I didn't speak to him over the phone or go and see him.
Is he in New Zealand?
No, he's here.
Cool.
He's here in Perth, man.
Cool.
Yeah. But overall, and overall, in the new space that I'm in, and with all the work that I've done on myself, particularly on the spiritual side of things, there's a big part of it where I'm at peace, man. I do find this peace at it, and I've been looking at it as an opportunity to navigate this with a new mindset. But yeah, the thought of him not fucking being here again and having those conversations and that he used to have him, it's pretty hard, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it is.
But also just having these opportunities. And this is what this podcast is all about, though, man, keeping it fucking real. So look here, it's an opportunity, man, to have a talk about this openly with you boys as well, man.
It's good to be here, bro. Mm. Yeah, we've gone through the loss of our dad 4 months ago about now, just about. So, and it's been a powerful, tough, magical, interesting experience, the whole thing, so it's good to be here with you at this time.
Yeah. It's a massive part of life, isn't it, man?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some beautiful things that I've got from it, and it's how many people, the biggest thing I got from it, man, is like nothing else fucking matters anymore. You're under all this stress, and like, you're continuously pushing yourself in areas like this podcast and the starting line I'm setting up and full-time work and being a father, but everything's just stopped. It's like stopped for me, man. So and I find that quite peaceful in itself. Like it's like, and that's how real life really is, man. Like, I mean, fuck, it just brings you right back to the moment. And then also other things that you probably take. I'm always really grateful for the beautiful people I have in my life, particularly my family and friends and stuff. And but even more so now, man. Like, fuck, the amount of people that have just reached out and shown love and respect, and how many people's lives my grandfather's touched, and because he's quite a big known person within the community as well. And so it's going to be a big funeral too, man. So what did you guys get from it, man, out of it all? And how raw is it still?
It's the waves continue. The waves continue, but without a doubt, there's a deeper level of peace now. And it's a strange one, man. It's a strange one. Like, just so badly want to hang with him in form and personality, but I don't know, each time I've brought that yearning into the practices, it actually feels like a deeper connection with him, possibly than ever. And it's mysterious. It's so tricky to even talk about. It's such a subtle inner feeling. But then waves of grief and yearning for, again, that conversation, that hug, that connection. It hurts, you know, it hurts. So I think that continues on. Jo, my wife, she lost both of her parents about 10 or so years ago, and it seems to continue on.
That's it, man.
And even moments of forgetting that they're gone, because they're still here in that subtle realm of spirit and soul and love. So I just give myself moments to feel all the feels. If it's coming up, honor it, which is huge. Even just talking about it like this, it's massive, you know, because we do live in a culture where many of us haven't been given great tools to deal with loss and grief. So this is part of it, of allowing ourselves to feel it all and be vulnerable, and also explore the tools that help us process the grief and actually connect with them on a spiritual level. So for me, the waves continue, but for the most part, it feels more peaceful each day that goes on. Yeah, but you never know. Like the mind.
It's a little bit like that as well, like the yin and the yang. I think you spoke about it. Was it on the last podcast? And finding the beauty in the negative time, or you know, in the negative times as well. Like, because there's a lot of beauty that does come with it. I've found, man. You know, like, and and riding the way of it as well. It does. I actually thought yesterday, fuck, I'm grieving with this pretty well. And then like this morning I woke up and go, no, here's another load to sort of take on, man. Yeah.
And hopefully you can be gentle on yourself during this time. You know, one approach, many people out there just say, oh, just keep busy, keep busy, you know, but really you're just pushing the feelings aside, and they're not going anywhere, they're just building up. And so certainly I'd say just be gentle on yourself, give yourself plenty of time and space, and yeah, obviously this lined up and felt right to go for it, and I'm glad you have, because hopefully this is therapeutic chat throughout. Sure. But at the same time, if I know for me, you know, I've always loved getting into the gym and smashing myself in CrossFit, or at least in the last couple of years, and I just had to go, that is not what I need, you know, for a couple of weeks. And it was just hanging with Stu and hanging with the fam, and the thought of going in there and putting myself through that just didn't feel right. So since then, even, you know, around 4 months later, I'm still more honest with how I'm feeling at any given point in time. And if I just need to not go to the gym and just chill out and breathe and gently move, or go to the beach or do whatever, I've just been honouring that. And I feel that's, you know, that's effective grieving, is when you need to just chill out, when you need to have a sleep in, when you need to cancel on that catch up, you know, honour that and give it a bit of time. Because, sorry, what were you going to say?
Well, do you sort of, it's cool that you brought that up, man, because it is very important. I've actually been feeling that up to the point of this death. The crazy thing is, man, I've actually been feeling like this has been going to happen for the last 2 weeks leading up to it, man.
Yeah.
And now that I'm looking back on it, I mean, I've been struggling a lot, and I've just been trying to put my finger on, like, what is this, man? Where is it coming from?
Isn't that
trying
insane?
to sit with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, this happens, man. And yeah.
That's interesting. And we had a similar experience, because the weeks leading up to Dad's passing, which was also completely unexpected, you know, Dad went out on top. There was no warning signs at all. We had a yoga retreat that Stu and I co-facilitated, and that was like the deepest retreat we've had, they're always special and always deep, but there was this deeper feeling going on, and every day we would chat with the group, and one day we were chatting about Dad, and we're trying to get him healthier and working with him to get healthier and fitter, and Stu broke down crying this one day, and out of nowhere, it was really powerful. And you've got Stu really feeling the sadness that we're trying and doing what we can, and then I almost contrasted that with like sort of laughing and going, God, we're doing our best, and it just is what it is, and Dad's on his journey and he's doing his best, and this really sad feeling at one moment, and then the next thing we're all laughing as a group, knowing we're just doing our best, and it's all love, and we just have to love each other and love him, and then 3 days later he'd passed away, and the same sort of thing, like you're feeling. At the time, you didn't know that was going to happen, but now it's happened, and you look back and you're like, you almost did know, which is really strange.
Yeah.
And then it's certainly, it's nice you've been on this journey of exploring your spirituality and what that is to you, because the loss of someone so close and so important in your life, it really changes things. And for me, the big one there was, okay, well, what's happened to the spirit? And Dad was always the guy outside of Stu, and my family. I would always catch up with him and talk to him about what's going on in life, and whether it's my love life or work life, and it was always such a warm, comforting chat. But I would have to go and catch up with him to have that chat, whereas now I can sit there and chat with him at any point in time, and it feels more real than ever, and I know exactly what it would feel like, and almost exactly what he would say, and I can feel his presence, and I can feel him there, and his spirit hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's bigger, and it's everywhere, and it's wherever we need it to be, and feeling into that. So, before losing Dad, if I ever, was praying or looking to a greater sort of power, I didn't really know exactly what I was praying to or what that was to me. Whereas now, I've got Dad out there, help us through this.
And if you're quiet enough, you feel that.
Yeah.
You get the answers. You get you get to have those conversations.
That's right.
I'm actually booked, and I was booked in before this had happened, before my grandfather passed away. Booked to go and do some plant-based medicine this weekend.
Oh, nice.
So,
what's the
Ayahuasca.
ceremony? Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
all right, here we go.
Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Talk to Stu.
Yeah. I feel good about it. I have sat with it. So just
that's key. Feeling called to it, feeling good about it. But ayahuasca has helped me a lot. I was doing it quite regularly. About 12 years ago or so, I was doing it whenever I could, whenever there was an opportunity to it, I was all in, and it really did help me. And I truly do feel it really propelled my current life situation. It literally brought my wife into my life and my kids, like literally this epic ceremony back in 2012, in which my wife and I weren't together, and we were sitting in ceremony and literally both had a vision of our daughter Soleil, and it was undeniable, clear as this, clearer, like that deep spiritual blissful knowing. And all I could do was say yes, and next month we were pregnant with her. We weren't even together, but that vision and
that's crazy, man.
Deep,
but until you've done it, you understand it.
Yeah, so even talking about it doesn't give it justice, because it's so profound and so deep, but not to be fucked with as well. So I definitely, over the years, have cultivated a bit of discernment around it. Back in the day, I was like, everyone should take it. The whole world needs it. We need this to help us wake up and become a more kind species. But I've also seen people dive deep into cans of worms that they weren't ready to handle, or that it was just too much. So it's not for everyone. I think the discernment piece is big. If there are certain like mental illness issues or on antidepressants and shit like that, you want to be smart with it. You want to really check in with, is this for me?
And I think, like you said, it's not to be fucked with.
Yeah.
You got to take it seriously.
It's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's not about just going and getting high. Not at all. It's real work. You're taking in a plant teacher. And I don't know, for some that's a bit woo-woo and far out to say, but when you take it in, you go on a journey that can reveal heaps of bliss and heaps of love and joy and insight, but it can also just take you on a journey of what needs to be seen and purged and cleansed. But I've got such gratitude for ayahuasca and some other plant medicines as well, and they've truly helped me. But if it wasn't for the yoga and the mindfulness practices and the meditation practices, I don't think I would have gotten out of it what I did. Because each time I sat with the medicine, felt like a long, like retreat, this timeless, deep immersion into this multi-dimensional nature of our being. So it's incredible.
Yeah, it's been a journey for me, man. I mean, I knew about ayahuasca 4 years before I actually done it. And I didn't really have a real spiritual connection side of me at all. I didn't even know the circle of people. It was completely just... I was at a time of life where it was like, if this doesn't work, well, I'm not going to be here too much longer. And I can still remember looking at the ayahuasca before I took it, like scared as fuck. Like, what am I doing?
That's normal, man.
But yeah, well, it is. Yeah, I know. Well, this is going to be my fourth time, man, and I'm still just like, you know. But again, that respect for it, and the knowing. Well, there isn't no knowing about it. It's all the unknown still. I understand that, but I guess knowing that it's going to give me what I need. And I feel like I need that in me. I feel like I'm to open up another level of who I am as a person. And I looked at this as an opportunity. You know, I've obviously thought about it with my grandfather passing. You know, look, is this a sign of to do it or not to do it, which is a hard one to sort of navigate. But really, I feel I'm actually a little bit excited to see what comes of it, man. So, yeah.
Nice, bro. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. The only thing is, and I'll say this openly, I had a couple of drinks in the weekend, and they're meant to be. I think. Anyway, part of the dieting leading up to it, and I haven't been drinking at all for a while, but just been around all the family and things like that. I was having a few beers and stuff like that. So there was that sort of, because when we talk about it's not to be fucked with and you're meant to have respect for it, I take the dieting part leading up to it pretty seriously, you know. So there's a little bit of me letting that diet plan go over the weekend. But yeah.
Should still have enough time there.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice, man.
So should we dive into Stuart a little bit?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah.
You want to maybe? I'd like to know more about what you do, man.
Sure.
And I guess a little bit about what you do and how you got here, man. What's been your journey up to this point?
Well, let's go back to when we were kids.
Yeah, how long you got?
we grew up jumping in for Stu. Just grew up skateboarding. Stu was my older brother. I'm 3 years younger. So whatever Stu was doing, I was just following suit, kind of 3 years behind. So when we were young fellas, it was first footy and then skateboarding and music. We were jamming together, and so that was our background. And I'll just start with that because we grew up. We've always been like that, and I was just always the younger brother, kind of following.
But you've jumped in and said that means a lot to you.
Yeah.
You want to make that pretty clear, that he's been your older brother. And
that's right.
And I sort of felt that, and this is the first time I've met Stu, for those who are listening. But I've known that right from the moment I met Cam, is that he holds you pretty highly.
Yeah, couldn't hold any higher, I would say.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm so lucky, man. beyond grateful for our relationship, and that has been a big part of what's brought me to where I am now. This, I think it's rare, and it's not something I take for granted at all. And the evolution of it all. So just this camaraderie and this partnership, this brothership that just has kept going. And for me, the skateboarding thing I took to this depth of almost self-destruction, like, because I remember this feeling back then, like, of wanting to party. Like, I remember entering into high school and I just was seeking something, and didn't know what it was. It was just skateboarding and partying. And I got deep into raving. And for me, that was the equivalent of like ecstatic dance and how liberating it can be. So I was going to drum and bass raves whenever I could. And that was, for me, it was ceremony. It was deep and it was heart opening and it was beautiful.
Ecstasy,
man. You know, I was young, so I don't promote that at all, because I'm lucky to have gotten through it pretty unscathed. You know, it was actually a very awakening time, because it fucked me over. There was one night where I took something bad. It just felt like the equivalent of an overdose, even though I didn't know what that was, but I was fucked and just buried
so something you've taken. Consumed,
at a rave, I took some ecstasy, and it just, I was fucked. I think there was shitloads of ketamine in it and heroin apparently and stuff like that, and just went down what I know now to be a K-hole type thing. But I was shaking and I was cold and I was fucked. I thought I was going to die. It felt absolutely shit. But it, in retrospect, really gave a lot of insight. And during that time, I took a while to recover, actually, and just kind of buried myself in my dark room. And during that dark time in my room, just feeling like shit, that's actually when a lot of it began, of getting really healthy. So I just started burying myself in Tony Robbins stuff at the time, and Wayne Dyer, and nutrition stuff and bodybuilding stuff. And as soon as I could, started going to the gym and getting really healthy. And
how were you? How old were you?
I would have been 16.
Okay.
So everything Stu's ever done, he's done 110% all the way in, you know?
So when I got back to school, a lot of people literally didn't recognize me, because I went from this, back when I was raving and skating heaps, it was kind of a almost gothic phase as well. I had dyed long black hair and was pale and much skinnier. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting some sunlight and getting some color back in my skin, eating healthy, going to the gym, and got deep into bodybuilding. And all of a sudden, I'm this health freak and like inspired and happy and in a really good zone, and all of a sudden doing better at school and just in a good place, and stopped drinking and stopped drugs and just got really clean.
Just to stop you there, man. Like, I mean, at 16 years old to find that though.
I was lucky, man. It felt like a real, to use Ram Dass's words, like fierce grace. He often talked about fierce grace, like grace can often strike in mysterious ways and sometimes in really shitty ways. And I really do feel that was a real blast of fierce grace, because many friends kept going down that path and aren't doing so good. And a couple of them actually did die. And it was an edgy time. And I feel lucky to have actually gotten some gems of like inspiration out of it. So it continued on, man, like from the bodybuilding thing, just obsessed with health and fitness. Then after high school, getting straight into personal training. And that was going great. The personal training thing, I loved it. It was going awesome, working in Subiaco, heaps of clients and loving life. Found a beautiful girlfriend and had a long-term relationship, and life was great. But I was seeing a lot of gaps in the whole gym scene and the health and fitness scene, and something was
Smashing coffee all day, every day.
Yeah, so they didn't have Monster drinks at the time, but a lot of pre-workout. Everyone was just revved and on like aspartame yogurts and just like, whoa, what's going on? This isn't healthy.
Yeah.
Like, and clients, most of them were quite wealthy, being in Subiaco and just that type of clientele. And I was just like, these people are getting healthy and fit, but they don't seem that happy.
I guess the materialistic vanity thing, it's all ego, a lot of that.
A lot of it can be. So that's what further drove this curiosity. And then eventually it was like, it just felt like traveling, and just eventually packed my bags and split up this relationship and just packed my bags and went on a world trip solo. And that's where it further changed the game of getting out of my usual patterns and getting out in the world, a lot of time in Southeast Asia and then a lot of time in Europe, and then actually lived in Canada for a few years, and just getting exposed to different cultures helped me. Having spent a childhood,
personal training, doing all of this?
Yeah.
So you're still in the industry, and
but it was in Canada where I was starting to really be touched by the yoga, and met an awesome teacher, Angela Jarvis-Reid, in Toronto, that it was just changing me big time. I hadn't felt this feeling in her yoga classes ever. I'd touched a bit of yoga, but then going to her classes just blew me wide open. And that was another huge shift in my life, in which I just became obsessed with yoga. And all of a sudden, with my PT clients doing personal training, while being obsessed with yoga, all of a sudden I was actually starting to teach them more yogic principles rather than just PT. And then some pennies were dropping, and that became the next chapter of just yoga, and moved back to Perth.
The penny dropping, sorry, with that penny dropping, are you relating that to the whole coffee pre-workout thing of? Because
actually, Canada is where I was smashing coffee way too much. So the cafe next door to the gym I worked at would have free refills of coffees, and it was cold.
And the big buckets.
Those big Timmy Hortons, big long coffees that are strong just one. And I would have 6 to 10 of them, just all day. Revving hard, working hard. Wasn't playing too hard at that time, but going hard. And then actually Cam and Lee Catania, shout out Lee Catania, much love, came over for a trip, and we actually did party pretty hard and had a good time. It was just a good time. And went down to Cuba, and it was all you could drink, and just went hard in a great way. But
and then EOS as well,
and then went over to Greece, and was in the process of ending another long-term relationship, actually, which was a whole thing in and of itself. But it felt like that was another, like, burning the candle at both ends kind of self-destruction type thing, because I got so fucked in EOS and traveling around the Greek islands. I got this deep cough.
Lee and me were over there just partying every single day, and you're in EOS, and that's all what you do. Have you been to EOS?
No, I haven't.
It's a fun place, but so we had just basically become alcoholics, and we're just having a great time, and you're just chilling by the beach all day, and it's paradise, and then absolutely partying every night. So we had sort of 3.5 weeks under our belt already, and then we were like, Stu, are you coming? Are you coming? And he's like, I'm coming. I'm like, I don't know if he's coming. He's like, all of a sudden Stu rocks up. And me and Kat we're very well conditioned in the lifestyle. And, all right, Stu, we're going out, and we just show Stu all around, and basically we would have had 2 or 3 big nights, and then you just got crook as right. You got the EOS cough.
Yeah, just hit the wall hard. But
the EOS cough is
obviously
a known thing, yeah.
But it was such a challenging time going through this breakup, and things were just changing in my life.
You were shot.
I was just like, I got to keep going. I was like digging deep to keep partying, to keep just riding the wake of Cam and the guys, and I just couldn't handle it. This cough was getting worse and worse and worse. It was fucked, and we just kept going and just kept coughing. And then I was finally like, I gotta just get back to Perth and chill. And I was on a bit of a shoestring budget at the time, and booked this series of flights that took like 3 days to get home, and via multiple locations, and just coughing all the way home. And that actually eventually getting home was such a relief, and another kind of rehabilitating time in which I just hit another kind of rock bottom, so crook. And then that actually took the next wave of yoga to a whole nother level.
Okay.
And my just desire to get even healthier to a whole nother level, and it did.
Full ego death, right?
Yeah, another ego death, and just it was so full on and shit, and but it really did shed more layers of ego.
I do relate to that though, man. I'm very much the same. I don't do things in halves, and but it's cool that we're having this conversation, because I just caught up with a good friend of mine, Graydon. You know Graydon as well, and we literally just done an ice bath in a sauna, and we got the opportunity, and he and I'm sure he's happy for me to talk about this as well. But we for a while he's been pushing himself really hard at the moment, and so have I, and you can sometimes when you catch. You know, normally would give each other these voice memos on Instagram, and it's like, hey mate, how are you going? Yeah, fuck, keep pushing hard, and you feel all this energy and everything else. But in the last couple of weeks, it's been like, you can hear it in your voice of like, man, you're pushing a little bit too hard here, and you can feel it. But it's almost like the universe has just slapped him across the face and just stopped him in his tracks. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's important. I don't know. Do you listen to these things, or do you just wait for that time? Because there is a lot of learning and being smacked back down to.
It's funny you say that, because I was watching one of Graydon's stories probably a week or two ago, and he'd got up early, and there was a bit of what's his name about it? Who's the
Goggins?
There's a bit of Goggins philosophy about it, and you know, he'd mentioned he'd only had a few hours sleep, and he was having a pre-workout in the morning, and he was getting on with it, and you could see he was looking a bit tired, and he was doing the ice bath and pushing, and I'm going, geez, man, he's fucking pushing himself here, and I hope he holds up all right. He's got a bit of youth on his side, and he'll be fine. But yeah, do you push yourself right to the edge? I sort of had my own version of that. About a month after Dad passed away, I'd had a couple of weeks not gymming, and then I started to get back into it. I was registered to do a CrossFit comp, and it's this CrossFit comp called Frantic. And I knew I was so underprepared, but I started to string together a few gym sessions, but I was just rocking up to the gym, and that was almost an accomplishment enough. And with CrossFit, if you're not like burying yourself every workout, if you're going into a comp, you're just going to get found out there, because it's fucking brutal. And so I was training, but I was just rocking up, and I wasn't like killing myself. I just didn't have the will. I was kind of questioning, why am I doing this to myself? You know, my poor soul, I'm just abusing myself. And yet I felt like I'd just done enough. And I was like, you know what? I haven't quit anything before in my life. I'm doing this fucking comp. Let's see what happens. And man, the first workout, like a minute in, I was just cooked. Yeah. And there was still 10 minutes to go, and I'm going, I'm well over my. Oh, actually, just before I was about to do that, I was about to go home. I'm like, I've got it. I can't do this. I'm watching people just die out there, and I'm like, I've got to get out of here. And Costa, the coach, sort of said, well, if your heart's not in it, just go home. And I was like, fuck, all right, I'm going home. And then another friend, Georgia Otto, I was like, Cam, just take the pressure off. Have fun out there. Like, what's the big, why are you putting all this pressure on yourself? And then, all right, I'm back in it. All right, I'm going in. And so I've decided to go in. And, but yeah, literally, there was a 400-meter sprint row, and then all this gymnastic stuff. And I was just full of blood. I couldn't even do a pull-up, yet I still had another 21 to go, and then another 21 toes to bar, and then another, it's just smash, and for 10 minutes, and I couldn't even get myself up there. I'm literally walking up and down going, what the fuck have I done to myself? Everyone, all the guys from the gym are just going, oh shit, like train wreck of a situation here. And then that was just the first workout. Then there was a second and a third and a fourth. And the fourth one was, it was echo bike, just destroy yourself, and then burpees, jump over the barbell, and then heavy deadlifts, and then go. And then back on the echo bike and 50 cows just as quick as you could or something like that. And I'm going and everyone's yelling at me and I'm like, this is my chance to really prove to myself what I'm made of. And anyway, I absolutely emptied it like to breaking point because everyone was yelling and I'm like, I got this. But there's actually footage of me. I didn't know there was a camera right in my face. And I've just like, I'm slowly like, I get off this bike and I just die. And this thing captures like a relative ego death of that thing because I've absolutely buried myself to breaking point, and you can see it, and I haven't been the same since. You know, to me, I had to go to that place to just realise, you know what, I've got to be kinder to myself. So sometimes you do just have to.
So what are we trying to say here, boys? Because we can all relate to it. So ego deaths are good. We should be pushing ourselves to, you know, like, because there's so much. Yeah, sorry. But
I think in our culture we lack initiation and rite of passage, and that without that we then look for ways to facilitate that. And when I look back at each time I've just burned the candle at both ends and just fucked myself over, it was almost like a subtle, intuitive way of, facilitating that ego death, which can come about from psychedelics as well, can come about from really taking a spiritual practice deep. Or even that's one of the purposes of fasting and going off on like a vision quest or walkabout, or really pushing ourselves in certain ways to then see what's on the other side. But with us, kind of a lot of us not being connected with a religion anymore, or kind of any real indigenous practices or whatever kind of practice to facilitate that rite of passage, I think we create it ourselves. I look back and I can see that in me. I can see that in Cam. I can see it in so many of us. And potentially, if we don't get those ego deaths, that's all we think we are. We're just ego. And that's not making anyone happy. So maybe it is necessary. I also see the potential that it doesn't have to be riddled with so much suffering, but we're stubborn fucks. So most of it.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're because we're so conditioned and we're so caught up in our mind anyway, and perhaps so detached from our true essence and our spirit. You have to potentially push yourself to that point. If someone is so connected and they have that already and they're not so caught up in what they should or could be doing, and they're not so caught up in the ego, maybe they don't need to take it to that place, but perhaps in our examples we just had to take it to that place and push it right to the edge and beyond, and then you come out of it this different person with a different view.
Well, we were talking about, I guess there's, you know, we always talk about like the positive ego and the negative ego. There's a positive ego, totally. You know, like, I mean, we were talking just before we went live on the podcast of like how, like, moving into a new space like yoga, which will go back into your yoga and what you're doing now, Stu. But I mean, you know, and I think that ego death is also just going into a completely new place that you know nothing about. You don't know these people, you don't know this community, you don't know yoga. You feel completely out of fucking place. So go and bury that ego that's stopping you from doing those. And that's an extreme to me in its own right. But it seems to be more of a healthier.
Yeah, it does seem to be like the metamorphosis idea, the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. That caterpillar has to turn to mush, and it has to go through all the struggle. It has to turn to mush to build its wings, to break through the cocoon, to come out the butterfly. So there is that, perhaps, that there is the struggle as part of it, you know?
Yeah, and then there's also the common situation of hearing stuff like this and then trying to kill the ego or bury the ego, which normally just further reinforces the shadowy, darker aspects of the ego. It barely works. So it's a mysterious thing, and it takes a lot of consistent work for it to be real and integrated. But yeah, I think there is a healthy ego. I think when we have moments like that of insight as to who we truly are, and then we can learn to witness the ego. And if we're doing some practices that help quiet the mind and open the heart, like literally, we can then actually see the ego for what it is. And it's not that real after all. And it's kind of like the ego becomes like a lens or becomes more transparent. If we haven't done any of this work or these experiences, it's like the ego is a foggy lens, and that's how we're seeing the world, just from our separate ego. But then as we have experiences like this and maybe have an effective practice, we polish the lens and the ego becomes more transparent. And then we can be more free, we can be more peaceful, more connected with who we truly are, and actually have a healthy ego.
So what's the work you're doing at the moment then, Stu? Like, is that sort of, it seems to be that's a good place to go when you're wanting to do this sort of ego work.
Yeah, well, that's what yoga's all about. I mean,
Can we talk about yoga a little bit?
Totally. Yeah.
Because
any specific questions?
Well,
riff on?
all of the above. I've done it a few times. I'm hearing about it more and more and more and more, and I know it's something I've got to lean into. So it's really probably a good conversation to have with me at the moment, because I'm one of those people that are still yet to really fully walk through the door and give it a go. But so yeah, look, I'm interested in the mind body connection through the breathing and things like that. But for me, it's I struggle with the stretching part of it. It's hard, man.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like, I've done boxing, I've done surfing, I've done skating a lot of part of my life, man, and had massive injuries from skateboarding. I've got some good stories about that if we get time. But with yoga, it seems to be up there as one of the hardest.
Yeah, it's hard.
You're going into battle against yourself.
Yeah, totally.
True. Yeah.
So it can kind of serve as that initiation type thing, because many of us can think we're pretty fit, pretty capable of doing heaps of stuff, and then there we are in a long ass stretch and facing all this sensation and all of our thoughts, and it's challenging. And we're both not super flexible. Even after all these years, I'm not very flexible. It can still be tough. But that doesn't matter. That's good to lean in, kind of like appreciating the toughness of an ice bath.
I guess you're always going to keep pushing it, aren't you? Regardless.
Keep pushing it and just learning to gain more mastery of good breathing, good discernment, focus. And it really, just breathing through the challenge of it all does cultivate this real fortitude and this ability to, and Cam talks about it so beautifully, of regulating the nervous system. So that's all part of it, because that initial gripping we get all the time. And normally that is our experience. We react and we're in that fight, flight, freeze. Yet through breathing through that stretch that's challenging and just hanging out and not giving up, you start to tap into that resilience that is more intelligently responsive than just unconsciously reactive. Yet when we're all wound up and can't handle just letting go into, whether it's that ice bath or that stretch or even just meditation is challenging for many people, just to let go into doing nothing.
That's crazy you talk about that, man. It comes up on every single podcast. Of surrender, man. Surrendering and letting go. And so I guess yoga is more building that mindset structure around.
And also learning to observe the mind and the neuroses of the mind and the conditioning of the mind, and learning to observe it, witness it, know that you're not those things, you're not your thoughts, and seeing how the mind affects your body with the emotions and the tension, and learning to observe that, and then come back to the breath. I mean, I'll give my little example of where it was so profound. For me, I was always completely fearful of public speaking. You wouldn't even get me in this setting, because the anxiety of having the microphone would have sort of crushed me, and I'd get caught up in my breath and get short of breath, and then I'd just pass it straight back over to whoever else because I was about to bloody faint. And it was really affecting my life. You know, I was a shy person. I couldn't make eye contact a lot, and you would not want to get me talking in front of a group of even 5 people, even 5 friends at a party. I'd get a bit of social anxiety, even though I was, you know, you would have thought I was a confident person, but in that setting, telling a story, it would all start to crumble. And I was down at Stu's beach yoga back, 15 years ago, and we were doing pigeon pose, like a deep glute stretch, and it was horribly uncomfortable. And Stu was talking about, so just witness how your body reacts when you're in that stretch, what happens to the breath. Meanwhile, I'm tensing, I'm sweating, and I'm absolutely hating life. My breath is short and shallow, and it's all just garbage. I'm completely resisting and fighting the sensation that was going on. And with his dialogue, I kept, okay, so I'm tensing up, in response to the sensation. And that letting go and relaxing and coming back to the breath, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing everything, and just sinking into the stretch. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't so bad. In fact, it felt beautiful. Oh, and it was just like...
Just even listening to it,
yeah,
you sort of feel your body.
And that was an impetus for you transforming your nervousness,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, and I was then able to... Because I was studying physio at the time, so I was learning about the nervous system, learning about body tension and pain. So I would witness what would happen if I was about to talk in front of a group of people. Fists clenched, jaw clenched, tightening up like I was about to enter into a fight or something. Really because of fear of embarrassment or fear of stumbling on my words or whatever, this neurotic, irrational fear that was all mind stuff. And then once I was able to kind of rationalise the situation, say these are just people that only want the best for me. If I actually do stutter, stuff up my words or completely fuck the whole thing up, they're not going to give me shit. They're going to go, oh, poor Cam, so no big deal. And then I was able to just go, well, fuck that. That's all just neurotic mind stuff. And then relax the shoulders, unclench the fists, relax the jaw, come back to a calm breath that Stu was kind of guiding us through with that stretch. Maybe even just smile at the madness of it all. And then just go up there and take my time, not need to fight for the words because it doesn't need to be perfect, and it all just went away. And over time I was able to gradually get over it, and Stu and I do these events together with, I don't care how many people are in the room now, the more the better, because it still triggers a response in me. We still have the fear of embarrassment, we still want to nail it, we still want to be perfect, but they're all just neurotic human things. If we stay present, if we keep the mind nice and calm, that's the yoga. So really that's...
But that's just in life in general. And by being calm and not forcing or stressing one thing, you're also, and being able to then surrender, you're allowing the things to come into your life, aren't you? Sometimes I feel like we're fighting so aggressively to go this way or to control it, and then we're screaming at the universe, oh, why is this all happening to me? It's like, well, I can't get in there. You need to surrender, you need to relax, you need to be open. And so everything you were just saying then sort of just it reflects in all the different areas of life.
That's right, again and again.
Yeah, so the yoga isn't the stretch.
It just feels like the stretch.
You can practice yoga and not be doing a stretch. That's a big old confusion in our current interpretation of yoga, because that's what's been popularized, is that you go to a yoga class and you stretch, which is a good way to get into the state of yoga.
Yep.
But the state of yoga is a state of deep focus, or if you really take yoga to its full depth, it's a practice of connecting with our enlightened self, truly, our heart, clarity, insight. And the avenue of stretching just seems we need it. Where most of us carry way too much tension, so it is useful. All right, let's unravel all that tension, and then lay down, meditate, and potentially it's just a potent combination that can help people get in touch with exactly what Cam was talking about. But you can get it through chanting. Many people, their yoga practice is chanting. They've never done a stretch in their life, a yoga stretch, and there's chanting. That's their vehicle for cultivating yoga. Meditation is a yoga practice. And then it gets even more interesting, the practice of karma yoga, in which anything can be your yoga.
Yoga off the mat.
Yoga off the mat. Cooking could be your yoga. The way you cook, the way, like, some of the most profound, like, yogis I've met weren't on the mat yogis. One was a security guard at the ashram I often went to, it's been a while. The most chill, tranquil, you could feel the bliss. And he was just chilling. Wasn't a revved up security guard, but you didn't want to fuck with him. Kind of because he's in his heart, he's in the zone. So chill. And the chefs at this ashram, never saw them on the mat in the yoga room, but the way they were cooking the food and serving it was done with such love and devotion and presence. That truly was their avenue for yoga. Anything can be yoga. Yeah.
And so, as you know, like, this podcast, Fucking Real, is about better mental health for people that are in those places of suffering. And it sounds to me yoga is one of those things. A good option. A great start to something. So, you know, for those who are listening and thinking like, fuck, you know, I want to lean into that. What? Because you hear a Zen yoga. So where's a good place to start? I mean, like, for me, I'm going to start doing after this.
Well, you said you were going to come to Centre Space.
Yeah, come to Centre Space.
Yeah.
It's our hub.
Yeah.
Like, where, location-wise, or where, what kind of class?
Like, you know, it's quite overwhelming for all the different classes you can do. You got Bikram yoga, you know,
it depends. I mean, for me, the yoga began as a very vigorous practice. I was drawn to a very vigorous vinyasa flow, power yoga. I needed to move a lot to finally be able to let go. And that seems to be a common avenue for people. They need to move, they need a great playlist of music, and that's cool. We're sensory people.
That's worth mentioning. Like, the Shavasana at the end of the class is corpse pose, is that death. You can talk into that. You know, you don't need to go and, you know, overdose on drugs to have an ego.
Yeah.
Death,
so the purpose of a good yoga practice is to facilitate that dying before we die. So that's Shavasana, that end lying position. If you really burn through and stretch through and breathe through all the tension and all of our mind stuff and allow yourself to let go in Shavasana, it can be like a mini death every yoga practice. And then you come out of it and you can just see things clearer. Things that we're all worried about and overthinking and anxious about, unravel that, regulate that, die before you die, Shavasana, and then come back up into your meditation and intend to bring that yoga into life. It's pretty cool. We can do that every day. Can do it multiple times a day if need be, which is what I do.
Well, I mean, and once you start doing it, because it's not just yoga, is it? It's like ice bath, plant-based medicine.
Whatever.
It's all that diet. That's the Phoenix.
Your workout. Listening to Ken Wilber once upon a time, you know, and he's in great shape physically, and he's a beautiful spiritual teacher, one of your great teachers, and Adishanti was interviewing him, and he was like, Ken, what's with all the muscles? You know, he's essentially a beautiful teacher, spiritual teacher, but he's pretty jacked. And Ken...
He's pretty...
He is.
He's pretty faded. He's old and quite frail now.
He was pretty jacked, wasn't
he?
he?
He was, he was jacked for sure.
And he talked about going to the gym. That was one of his greatest yoga practices, because he would go in there, he was fully present, moving with the breath, which is what yoga's all about, linking the mind with the movement and the breath. And he would push himself right to the edge, have his Shavasana, because he'd smashed himself, you know, thoroughly, and then come out of it, you know, reborn or whatever it is for him. And that, I listened to that, you know, a decade ago, and that made me think, okay, you can go to the gym, you can do CrossFit, you can go to yoga. your yoga is whatever you want it to be. Do it.
I like that. I like that you guys said that, because it is like when you guys were talking about it, I was thinking like, man, I do that with ice baths, the gym. You know, even we were talking about ayahuasca. You know, like, I mean, you're really putting yourself in a place of dying and resurrecting, I guess.
Yeah.
But definitely. You've got a lot of resistance to the stretching, so I would say the obstacle is the way. You got to lean into that.
Yeah.
Because when you,
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm making that the problem.
Yeah.
And like you said, it doesn't matter how flexible you are. You're going to always push it to that limit of the hurt, I guess.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's just wherever you're at the time. So I was probably in the same boat as you of going. I went the opposite way. In that, okay, well, if yoga's just whatever I want to do, then I'll just do CrossFit and be present in work and life and try and be a calm, happy person or whatever. But meanwhile, I was getting tighter and tighter, and my muscles were holding on to all this tension, and I had the same resistance to like a yin class, just stretching and all that, because it was so uncomfortable. I was resisting it. And I kept having this. I started dreaming about stretching. I got to stretch this shit out, So for me, it was the letting go, the softening. I've got to find that balance.
Man.
Yeah,
I'm there because I feel my body just doing that at the moment.
It helps everything.
Yeah,
it will help your ayahuasca journey, being less tense and being able to sit cross-legged with the medicine to go on a journey, rather than being all distracted by your tension and just needing to lay down the whole time, which is okay. It's common. But when a big part of yoga asana posture is to cultivate a strong, relaxed seat for meditation, which helps everything, man. Because many of us, we're not just tight in our muscles, we're tight from our genitals, through our belly, through our throat, to our jaw. And that affects everything. It affects, the way we speak. It affects the way we have sex. It truly does. When we're like, when dudes have trouble getting an erection, often they find when they stretch out and breathe out the tension, all of a sudden they got a boner. They're good to go. It helps that. And even bringing that flexibility, that breath awareness, that focus into the bedroom. That's epic. It takes it to a whole nother level. So that's a real gem of it, is we can find the yoga anywhere, anytime, but there is a cool, potent combination to it that's just very comprehensive. So like in the gym, for example, you can mimic it by moving the spine comprehensively and having a good stretch down at the end, and then allowing yourself to re-enter the parasympathetic nervous system and relax. You can, but a lot of people don't. They do their workout, have their pre-workout, they're revved, and then they jump in the car and put on the radio and they're still revved, and then they go and work or do whatever and still revved without that kind of come down back into the heart, back into relaxation. But it seems when one has a yoga practice or a meditation or breathwork practice or something, they then inevitably integrate it into just life of being more masterful to relax and take a moment to quieten. Because we're adaptable. We can just go hard, revving.
Oh, like I like how you said it with the sex side of it. I mean, I just had a sexologist on here last week, and
I thought you were going to say you just had sex.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing all the semen retention, that we've been talking about on here. But it's funny, look, every walk of life we're different.
It's all the same stuff.
It's all the same stuff.
Same
man.
messaging.
It actually sounds like yoga, though, is that sort of hub of it all, though. But to me, like it sort of can stem, and like you're saying, in all different aspects.
Really comprehensive. It's
But the time's up.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd love to. I feel like we've
just got started. We've just scratched the surface a bit.
I know.
So, but we are on a timeline here. So, we'll start to wrap it up. But for those who are listening, I'll get the details of the yoga studio, physio, and because up on my website, I just have everyone on podcast and the details. So if you are struggling, whatever you're going through, you can reach out to the different areas and have the access to the different. for all the work.
Awesome.
So that's where people will find us. But I'd love to invite you back on here sometime
Yeah,
soon.
man. Let's do it. Let's do it in a couple of weeks or so.
We'll bring a few more topics in and dive in a little bit deeper.
Love what you're doing, man.
And only fella, we only just really scratched the surface with your story.
We're like halfway through, but that's cool. Yeah. You got the gist.
Well, the story never ends, does it?
That's
And
right.
you can see your own bits in each of our stories, and that's the really cool bit as well. So it's awesome, man. But just, take care of yourself during this process as well. And it's early days, and wishing you a smooth grieving process, man. And we look forward to catching up again.
Yeah, let's do it again, man.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, boys.
All the
Thanks.
best,
Cheers, brother.
All right.
Thank you, my man.